You are tuned in live to Iowa Postgame here with Coach Gary Close and a special guest on tonight's show. And we sandwiched him right in the middle because this is going to be a fun one. J.R. Koch is with us. And gentlemen,
He's the
first of all,
turkey
J.R.
between the two pieces of bread.
White bread, Gary. Wonder bread. JR, first of all, pleasure having you on. Thank you for taking the time this evening. And before we jumped on, I overheard you and Coach discussing the Murray twins, and certainly we can get to their performance. But your initial reaction, JR, to what was a very impressive win for this entire squad in Ann Arbor, a very tough place to play.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great effort by everybody, but when the guys get it going, especially Keegan early, gets it going, it puts so much pressure on the defense, and it starts to open up some opportunities for the rest of the guys. And J-Bo gets open looks, and they just start cooking, and they become very tough to guard when that gets going.
Gary, I know you're watching from a different place today, as we talked about on our last show, but boy, have you seen Iowa play a more complete half? I mean, we said that in the second half against Ohio State. I thought that first half tonight was just exceptional. Struggled a bit defensively in the second, did enough. But what about that first half, Coach?
Yeah, I would agree. That might have been their best first half, both offensively and defensively in combination, maybe all year. And boy, when you're on the road against a team that's trying to get every win they can to lock up a spot in the NCAA, I don't think it's a guarantee for them yet. That's a damaging loss today for them. And they led from start to finish and really were never threatened. I mean, there were a couple times they got a little bit dicey, but I never felt that they were really in trouble. And I think at both ends of the court, they were really, really sharp and got a big lead and held it and played well enough down the stretch to get a convincing win. So playing really good basketball right at the right time.
Yep, for sure.
You and me are in a different place, Gary, because it's the 7-minute mark. I had a bad feeling come over me. JR, are you with me?
Yeah, they had like 3 or 4 turnovers in a row, and I started, the ball just wasn't moving. They weren't moving, and I was like, come on, guys, let's get this. Let's get it. I forget what happened. I don't know. They hit something, hit a bucket, and it kind of gave me a little – I think it pushed it back up to 9. And I was like, all right, I think we got enough room here to outlast this. I think
it was a play where Murray hit Murray.
Yes, that was it. That was it.
Really good interior passing play that bumped it back up again. They were never in trouble. You guys weren't in trouble.
It's all those years of experience. Yeah.
It's easy to sit back here and say,
I tell you, though, we've talked about it, Gary, but to see, I mean, did you ever think that this team, and I know that so still a wait and see, we've still got a game before we even get to postseason play, but if you had told me back in November or even December, and perhaps even early January, that this team would be playing this well right now, I'd have called you crazy. Seems like everything's, and I don't want to, put the cart in front of the horse, so to speak, but it seems like everything is kind of clicking at the right time, and it almost makes me feel a little uneasy. I don't know. I just am not used to this in early March, Coach.
Yeah, no, it's fun to see. It really is. The seniors are stepping up with J-Bo, and the Murrays are just continuing to get better. And the first half, I think they shot 70% from 3 and 60% from 2. Didn't miss a free throw. Had 2 turnovers.
Yep.
Moving the ball real well, and a lot of that was fed in from pretty good defense at the other end. They got them good shots. So
I agree.
We're improving.
When they get Patrick and some of those guys, they can get a rebound on one end, push. It puts so much pressure on that defense. It creates open looks for J-Bo or whoever. I mean, that's tough to guard. I mean, so if they can just continue that defense, I think it all starts on the defense with them, defensive side.
I think that's a good point. They may be as good as any team in the country getting ball down to the other end of the court as quick as and like JR said, putting pressure on the defense and getting some easy baskets. And then when you get into this tournament play, those easy baskets getting less and less. But if you can get them, they're huge, and they put so much pressure, whether it's a make or miss. And that's not something that just happens. That's worked on. That's coaching. That's technique. Guys running the floor hard. Guys looking up. It's fun to watch. And I think they had Michigan on their heels right from the beginning. And got them a good, comfortable lead that they were able to hold on to.
Yep.
Jordan Bohannon with just a really great game. Efficiency from Jordan, 19 points, 5 of 7 from 3. He looked kind of like his old self. We've seen that a time or two. You know, he 4 of 11 on Monday against Northwestern. I'm not saying it's a bad game, and it was senior night for Jordan, so perhaps a bit of pressure. But he looked like his old self. If they can get him rounding into form, and we've seen Connor really find his stroke from 3, what's the ceiling for this team, JR?
I think if they can just keep playing the way they are, they can, tournament, get a couple. I think they're going to maybe hopefully secure that double bye. Is that a definite? I don't know for sure.
It's
close.
Not a definite,
it's
but
close.
You win against Illinois. It is a definite. I mean, they lock it in with a win at Illinois.
Yeah. So, that's kind of a new territory that hasn't happened for a few years here. So, you're playing on Thursday, Friday now, and you get a good win. I think it's, either maybe Northwestern or I forget who the other two are, Minnesota and somebody else, Northwestern. So, all tough games, but winnable games. And, you just never know at that point. Tournament time comes, you just never know. But they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, like you said, the beauty of it is you can, you're starting later in the tournament. So if you can survive, you're not as worn out than if you're starting Wednesday or Thursday. So that's big because it's a physical, it's a physical league, physical game. So fortunately, they're maybe a little deeper than some teams. Some other teams that don't play as many guys, it would affect a little more. But they had a lot of contributions from a lot of guys tonight in one way or another. That really helped.
And Joe Welsh brings up Tony Perkins. Man, 2 of the last 3 games, he has been a stud on the offensive end. He's obviously bringing it defensively. You saw Eli Brooks get kind of hot in that first half, and Fran had put Tony on Eli, slowed him down a bit. Eli Brooks is one, and of course it was a senior night. He's one heck of a player for the Wolverines. Mm-hmm. We do have a call on the line. I want to, before we take our first call, I'm happy to take calls tonight. But as I said before we had, I think it was Les Jepson on. Please keep the calls short and courteous because we've got JR on here, and no calls saying, JR, why hasn't your son committed to the Hawks? None of that.
Why
Let's
not?
be friendly to JR.
That's a fair call. What are you talking about?
Worry. I'm gonna grill him about it after the show is done. So let's get to our first call. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, this is Vincent.
Hey, Vincent, how are you?
Pretty good. Just a couple things. I thought tonight was a real or one of the more complete games I've seen from Iowa from a rebounding standpoint. Defensively, the 50-50 balls, Iowa was really doing a good job going after them, fighting for rebounds. So just really good, or really glad to see that. So one of the more complete games. The one question I had for both Coach Close and for JR, as we know Iowa's going to be heading into the tournament, for you guys, what might be one, and Corey, I asked you this too, but what might be one concern that you guys may have heading into the tournament you'd like to see Iowa really key on? And do you guys see Iowa, or might you think Iowa would have struggles versus a prominent big man? Do you guys see a concern there or not so much?
I'll start. I think it. Back from my TD days and Closey days, it's clearing that glass. It's the rebounds, not allowing teams to get second shots. They're playing good defense right now. They're kind of gang rebounding. When there's bigs in there, they're getting a good body on him and not allowing him to get it. But then the rest of the guys got to come in and scoop those up. And I think they're doing a good job right now, and that's just got to continue. So for me, it's rebounding. You just got to clear that glass.
Coach?
Yeah, I think it's good because they've had struggles at times in games they've lost where they have gotten beat up on the glass a little bit, and they're not, like JR mentioned, they don't rely on one guy. They almost got a gang rebound. All 5 guys got to contribute, and we've talked about it. I think their defense is going to carry them. I don't think they're going to have a problem scoring. It's going to be, can they hold people down enough to win enough possessions to win games, especially as the competition gets stronger and stronger, and the defense against them gets better and better, then they can't outscore people. They gotta get some stops on the other end. I think that's the exciting thing is I think their defense has improved, and I think they got to feel confident on that end that they can hang with people. So, like Junior mentioned earlier, the tournament's all about getting hot, and they're playing really well now. It'd be awesome if they could get into that double bye. That's still up in the air, but they put themselves in really good position. A couple of weeks ago, we were wondering whether they're even going to be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And, now that's a lock. Now they're trying to get into a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. That's how well they played and get some good teams. So
for sure.
It's very encouraging.
And Vincent, just to expound on that, let's remember that about a month and a half ago, Iowa dropped a game at Rutgers, and I don't think they passed 46 in that game. 46 points is a total, and lost that game against a good Rutgers defensive team, and then lost on the road at Penn State. And people were sort of pressing the panic button, at least in the fan base. Offensively, let's be honest, they've improved as well, JR, have they not? I mean, again, between Tony and Chris and Keegan playing well at the same time, we've seen good production out of Patrick. Got back tonight, which was good to see because, of course, he missed the last game out. But I think offensively, they're clicking at the right time as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was the Minnesota game at home was the first game with J-Bo at the point.
Right.
And I think there's just a comfort level. It's not him really running the ball, but it's a comfort level, and there's a more of a predictability or of a comfort with the rest of the guys. They know what to expect, where to go. And I think it's just the ball starts moving better and the guys get in a better flow. And also with Tony, I think it brings a little bit different defensive kind of presence and kind of lockdown guy.
More physical. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that was a great coaching move. I mean, we threw that out when they made that switch, and I think they're about 8-1 since they've done that, or 7-1. They got one loss. They've been a different team since that move was made. And we had talked about her. I really appreciate the way Fran has stuck with his seniors. J-Bo struggled there. Midway through the year, he was having a tough stretch, and he believed in him. And Connor had struggled a little bit, and all of a sudden he's a little more healthy and playing better. That's good coaching, building confidence in people that may be lacking a little bit, just going through a rough patch. And now they're rewarding him with really, really good, confident, solid play.
Anything else, Vincent?
Just two things. From what I see as a fan, I think you're seeing a lot more confidence in our shooters. I also like Fran's rotation that he's got now with Perkins in and Bohannon at the point. Whether we want to admit it's made a significant difference. I mean, you can't negate the wins and losses, but you certainly see more confident shooters, especially in Patrick, taking it to the rim with confidence or shooting with confidence. Same thing with Tony Perkins. You're just seeing a lot more confidence from the guys as they're playing as a group, and the rotations seem to be working really well. Last question, or first, JR, certainly hope to see your son maybe in a Hawkeye uniform. But last question, guys, and I'll hang up. Coach Close and for JR, you guys have both been in the NCAA tournament. If you were to give just one piece of advice to the players, what might you tell them heading into the tournament? JR is a former player, and Coach Close as a coach. And Corey, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Vincent. Appreciate the call.
You know what? Enjoy the moment. You're gonna look back someday, and you're gonna remember that opportunity, that time with your teammates, because unfortunately it's coming to an end, whether it's all the way to the end, but it's coming to an end, and just enjoy that moment and go out there and just do everything you can, play as hard as you can, and have fun.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we lose sight of that a lot, that trying to win in advance, you don't enjoy the experience you're going through. And I think that's good. I think the other thing would be is just, play like you played. Don't try to do anything different. Just keep playing like you're playing. Play to your strengths and play as a team and try to outwork people. And in some cases, it's luck. A ball bounces your way, and it can be the difference between winning and losing. So bust your tail. Like JR said, enjoy the moment and try not to do more than you're capable of doing. Just, play your game.
As Coach Walker used to say, do what you do.
Yeah, that's right. That's well put.
Let's get to our next call. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
I'm good. Is this the real MVP or the fake MVP?
No, it's the real MVP.
Okay,
I told you what happened.
Wanted to
Real
clarify.
MVP.
Wanted to clarify. How are you?
So-
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I mean, your team won. My women's team won today. Everything's going good.
What'd you think of the Hawks?
I think they played the most complete game they've played all season. I really loved whenever they were in a bind, like the crowd was getting back into it, they came up with a key stop. And also like that Keegan Murray, whenever they needed a key bucket, he just kind of isolated and said, I've got this, and always made the right decision.
That's a good point. And I was screaming at the television, JR, I'll admit it, to get the ball to Keegan when that lead went down to, I believe, 7. Yeah. And an unselfish a smart move by Keegan. The double came, and he kicked it out to Chris, and just a cold-blooded 3 for a pure shooter in Chris Murray.
I mean, there was no hesitation there. He just let it fly, and it was bottom. It was awesome. It was a big bucket.
Never in doubt. That game was never in doubt. You worry too much, Corey. How old are you?
I still got all my hair, Gary.
You're 25 going on 50. You got to relax.
I go to the barber. And
you got to enjoy the moment. Did you enjoy the moment today?
I enjoyed it when that clock hit 0.
Okay. All right. Smell the coffee.
I'm starting to, I'm starting to become a believer in this team, Gary, and it's starting to sort of scare me.
Wow. That's a big step for you.
God.
That's a big step.
People are going to love this. Gary ripping me. I love it.
Hey, the guy said on the television, if they win Sunday at Illinois, they're going to have a better regular season record than the team did last year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a better defensive team than last year. Can we all agree on that? It just is.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not anything against Joe Wieskamp, Luka Garza, Frederick, Nunji. It's just a better defensive team. There's more athletes. I think Fran, personally, what I've seen on the floor is Fran has really put the extra time in on that end. I'm not saying they didn't put time defensively in last year, but you almost feel like they were so reliant on the three-point shot, and they've found different ways to win games this year. And they've had games where they haven't shot the 3 well. They happen to be shooting the 3 well right now. Are you seeing the same thing, Gary?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think they've steadily improved defensively all year. I think offensively they've been pretty good, just about the entire, with a few blips in there every once in a while. But that's going to happen. But they've got, they progressively have gotten better. That's what you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You very rarely stay even. And this team has gotten better. And that's, but you still can't overlook what they lost in terms of personnel from last year. And, you lose 4 starters and in this league, and to turn that around that's pretty impressive.
I just think that I know that I'm biased, and I'm an Iowa guy. I'll admit that. I'm a homer. I think Fran McCaffery should be coach of the year. I think Greg Gard will win it. I think the Big Ten likes Greg Gard. That's my opinion. We saw that, and I know you don't.
Howard doesn't like Greg Gard.
He doesn't like Greg Gard, neither do I. But I know you disagree with this, Gary. But I think that I'm not going to go on a tirade on this again. But the 1-game suspension proved that the Big Ten likes Greg Gard, because I think he deserved at least a game from that. But my point is the fact that they have clinched a share of the Big Ten title. I think he'll win it. But Iowa lost more last year, and I'd have to bring up the numbers. Wisconsin lost a lot as well, and Greg Gard deserves a lot of credit because they were picked 10th. I don't know how they were picked 10th in the Big Ten. That had to have given them motivation. But I think Fran McCaffery deserves it. And you look at what they've done with Chris and Keegan, you talked about it with Jess Settles the other night, Gary, to be able to identify these guys when no one else in the country did. And Chris Murray is going to be a lottery pick probably this year. I think Keegan. Chris Murray has a chance, I think, to be a future first-round draft pick. I know, again, I'm putting the cart in front of the horse. But, JR, do you agree with that assessment? I mean, who would be your favorite right now for Big Ten Coach of the Year?
I think they're both, worthy of it. I saw both of them kind of preseason, and, I thought the cupboards were pretty bare. both had very similar type of things. They had a experienced guard coming back, kind of a 5th, 6th-year guy, whatever you want to call it. They had some new guys that were fitting in. At that time, we didn't know Keegan. We knew he was going to be good, but we didn't know he was going to progress this fast. They're both worthy of it. It's give or take. What do you put more stock in? So they've both done an amazing job. But I do love the way Fran, he just lets his coach kind of touched on it, lets his guys play and gives them some freedom. And that's not easy to do.
No.
I was having the same conversation earlier today. These two teams were built very similar heading into the year. Now they play a totally different, polar opposite style, but you got Brad Davison, who's an old guy. You got Jordan Bohannon, who's an old guy. And then you got Johnny Davis and Keegan Murray, 2 young guys that people expected to take that next step, but to what severity? And they both just fulfilled each of their roles to a tremendous degree. For sure.
I mean, they're so talented, and they really kind of fit the puzzle pieces in and around those 2 guys, and you kind of know what you're going to get with your old dogs there, and they've still gone out and performed and performed awesome. So it's been a lot of fun to watch these coaches kind of fit those pieces around and put them out there.
Your real MVP, I know you're still on the line. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No. If there's great discussion, I'm not going to cut it off. That's what the people are here for. But,
appreciate that.
The next thing I'll ask about is Iowa playing the best basketball in the Big Ten right now?
Gary,
that's a good question. I'd say you got to certainly put them in the mix. I don't think there's any doubt. What is it now? Are they going 7-8-1?
They've won. I think tonight they won 8 of the last 9.
Yeah,
8 of the last 9.
That's.
I mean, that's the hottest in the Big Ten.
That's the hottest. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
That's a legit question. It's it's always about the next game. Unfortunately, it's what have you done for me now? So we just need to keep percolating and keep going. We can get the next one and then the next one.
Especially initially, you see Illinois struggle tonight to beat Penn State. You see Ohio State lose. Who did they lose to just recently? It was
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, come
on.
At home, when they're still in the Big Ten race.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Iowa still has got an outside chance of getting the third place if Purdue loses. Huh?
No, they do. If Purdue loses, but I think they play.
They're probably not going to lose at home to Indiana. But hey, we didn't think Ohio State's not going to lose at home to Nebraska.
True.
So I think if they lose and Iowa wins, they're third.
They lost to them already this season, so
yeah,
you never know.
Absolutely.
The league's been a little crazy with some of those games of people have come up and knocked some people off that you just would shake your head at.
Yeah.
All right, Durrell MVP. Anything else?
Yeah, just one final question. I know this is an Iowa question, but I feel like it has to be asked. Tomorrow is Coach K's final game. What has Coach K meant to you all as players and coaches? And do you have any stories you would like to share about, in my opinion, the greatest coach in college basketball?
Appreciate it, Durrell MVP.
I don't really have
a lot of losses.
Yeah, we played him a couple of times and we lost to him, but a lot of respect for their program. I've read some of the books and about the 3 schools out there, and a lot of respect for the way he's built his program. And I've always watched those rivalry games with UNC. It's been good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good game for that to end on. Yeah. He's done an amazing job, both on and off the court. We've had some battles. There was a stretch there. We were playing them almost every year at Iowa. We were playing them in the tournament. We got knocked out 2 straight years in the second round. And years they won it all. Not very good luck with the draw. And of course, Chris Street's last game was in Cameron against Duke. That was a war. Been a lot of good competition for sure.
And before we get to our next call, and I will get to our next call here in a second, but I want to address this question. And I'm not going to ask you the question in the comment here, JR, but Charles says, can you give us a verbal from Cooper? Now, I'm not going to ask you for that. I do want to ask, just kind of take a moment from the discussion at hand. Can you address the recruitment of Cooper? Where is that at right now?
Well, he could address that a little bit better. I'm kind of the dad. I've done my job of brainwashing him for the Hawks for years and years and years.
Good.
Coach McCaffery saw some skill and talent in him as a trader over at the Iowa camp many years ago, and actually that next fall offered him a scholarship. So Hawks have always been on his mind, but some other schools have kind of been percolating and popping up, and it's my suggestion to, hey, you got to feel right about your decision because it's your decision. It can't be dad brainwashing you as much as I would like to, but he needs to come to that decision. But this week's been a fun week. We actually went to the Iowa game versus Northwestern, which was an awesome win. Had a great time. Hung out with my teammate, Kenny Mack, went and had some chips and salsa, and went to the game and had a good time. And then we went to the Wisconsin game Tuesday and had a great time there. That was one of the best college games I've seen. And actually, we went to the Indiana game yesterday. So now we're back, taking a couple-day break, and then we're going to go to Purdue on Saturday and Illinois on Sunday. So, I'm trying to answer your question, I'm trying to expose him to as much right now and just let him, because once he makes a decision, be where he's at.
To our caller who keeps hanging up, I'm putting you on hold because you all got some background noise. So to the caller who's calling back here, I'm just putting you on hold. I'm not hanging up on you, but go ahead, caller. Thank you for
Corey,
calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hello.
Hello, Corey.
Yes.
Oh, I normally hear your background noise, and I guess
I know
it went down to me.
No, you're good. If I put you on hold,
Actor.
if I put you on hold, it's just because I don't want any background noise while one of our guests is talking. So I apologize.
No, you can hear me now, though.
I can absolutely hear you now.
Oh, yeah, great. Sorry about that.
You're
yeah,
good.
this is Jared the actor. Hey,
how are you doing? How are you doing, Jared?
Doing great tonight, of course. First of all, a great win tonight once again. I guess we're 8 for 9, so we're crushing it. Going into the Big Ten tournament and then the March Madness. I just wanted to make a couple comments and then ask a question based on kind of patterns I've seen with Fran's coaching.
Okay.
But I'm seeing better rebounding. I'm seeing a huge step up in defense, and the Fran fade, which I think is a common term amongst Iowa fans, has not happened this year. So I just was curious on you guys' thoughts for, is something different this year? Is it about the coaching? Is it about the team? And what's making the difference this year where we're coming strong into the tournament season?
Coach, do you want to take that one?
Well, that's a good question. I think what he has talked about. I think their defense is just at a little bit different level. When you get into tournaments where it's one and done, and you get a team that's hot, you got to be able to get some stops. And I think the times they've been knocked out, they've been knocked out by really good teams. It's not like they're losing to bad teams, but teams have gotten hot on them. They just haven't been able to get enough stops, which usually happens when anybody gets knocked out. So I think last year's team was so explosive offensively that defensively they didn't have to be as good until they get up against real good competition. And it's a one game deal. If it's a best of 7, then maybe you make some adjustments and they take a couple games. But NCAA tournament, Big Ten tournament, one bad outing. And as JR knows, there'll be nights where you're going to be off, and it could be in a tournament game. You just don't shoot well. And that's where your defense has got to give you a chance to win the game. And that's what's been happening recently. So hopefully that'll continue. But hey, they could play real well and get knocked out. That's the nature of this league, and that's the nature of the NCAA. So that's why you got to enjoy these wins, because as JR says, it ends quick. So it's they could play really, really well and not win, and that's hopefully that won't be the case. But it certainly happened to not only them but a lot of good teams.
Jared, I hate to ask you this. Could I get you to turn your device down just a bit, bud?
Me?
Yeah,
No,
I'm sorry about that. I'm
Jared.
having some technical difficulties here.
You're good.
And
You're
I'm
good.
sure that's on my end, so.
Anything to add to what Gary said, JR?
I think it's that rebounding defense. I do think this group, they're on a good run here, but I think they've taken a little more edge to them. They're taking it to heart. Hey, for example, guys were attacking Jabo, and I think he took it. Hey, I'm not going to let him get to the bucket. I'm not going to let him. I'm just going to not let it happen. And they've kind of bought in and said, we're not doing that. We're not going that way. So I think that just that extra little toughness has gone a long, long way.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And then, thanks for the insight there, guys. And I had one last question, and I'm not sure who's the best to direct this to, but I've been really confused because I'm keeping up with the net rankings, the Ken Palm rankings, the RPI rankings, and Iowa's all over the map on that. And I think, there's 17, I think I looked this morning in the net. So the net really likes Iowa, but I think the RPI, they're way down towards 50. And is there any a brief explanation for how that works and where Iowa, fits in for when they get their final seed?
Well, I think part of it is part of the formula is margin of victory, and Iowa just had a lot of wins, including the Big Ten by 10 or more, and 10 is the max. And again, I don't know how much you can research that on NCAA.org, but I don't know how much the margin of victory plays into it, but it must play into it significantly because, I mean, you gentlemen can attest to this. Iowa has had very few real high-powered wins. I mean, they got 2 quad 1 wins. This was a quad 1 win tonight, but just one other on the board in that road win at Ohio State. And you've got a team like Rutgers. Now, I know Rutgers lost at Lafayette and UMass early, but a lot. I mean, we're talking like 30, 40 spots lower than Iowa, at least. I haven't checked where Rutgers is these last couple of days, and they've got like 6 quad 1 wins. So that's the only explanation I can come up with, JR.
Yeah, I don't follow all that as much. I follow the trending now, who's playing well, who's kind of got some good karma, good mojo going between themselves going into the tournament. But sometimes that falters. So I don't know. They should be getting in. I think they're in. Let's just hope we keep it going.
Right.
And there's a big discrepancy, Jared, to just expound on that a bit more. There's a big discrepancy, too, with these so-called bracketologists. You look at Joe Lunardi, who's had Iowa as high as a 6 in recent days. Jerry Palm's had Iowa as low as a 10. That's a huge gap for these guys. Usually Jerry Palm and Lunardi are pretty much neck and neck because they've been doing this for so long. So it'll just be interesting to see how much the committee weighs the net versus what you just said, the RPI and just all these factors, because we all know Iowa didn't have a real strong non-conference. They had a lot of blowouts, and perhaps that will help them just from a numbers standpoint.
Yeah, I get a little mystified when I look at those rankings. I think for some reason in the net rankings, Wisconsin's behind Iowa, which doesn't make sense to me since they're going to win the
margin
Big
of
Ten.
victory, though. Wisconsin plays everybody close, even in home. I think they beat Penn State at home by like 2. They play everybody close, so the losses are close, but their wins are close. That'd be the only way, because I've had the same thought about Wisconsin.
That's the only way you can explain it. I don't know what else it would be. They've won the league. They beat some good teams. They beat Houston. They beat one loss to Providence.
St. Mary's.
I think Providence won the Big East.
Yeah.
But I think Alcorn State was a tight game. Illinois State they barely beat.
Right.
Penn State they barely beat. Minnesota they almost lost to the other day. So I think those close margins have got to be the reason. I don't know that as much. That's something relatively new since I stopped coaching. So My theory is win as many games as you can, and that'll take care of it. If the stuff behind you is over. Nothing you can do about it. So get hot, keep winning, and the seeding will take care of itself.
All right, Jared. Appreciate the call. Have a great night.
Amen to that. Go Hawks.
Thank you, sir. Go Hawks. Love the calls from everybody tonight. And so let's just run through the stats. Our call line is back open here, 515-635-1601. But I want to run through these stats and get your guys' thoughts. So Keegan Murray, I mean, we talk about efficiency. He shot 9 times tonight. He scored 23 points. He's 4 of 4 from 3. These were not all open threes. His shot has gotten better as the season's gone on. 6 boards. And we talked about rebounding. JR, you are a perfect person to discuss rebounding. I get a little bit nervous, especially in that first half.
Whoa, JR, rebounding?
Gary. Come on.
You can't get rebounds when you hang out at the 3-point line. What are you talking about? Did you check this stats before you came on?
I think you must have been in debate.
I'll get you later. Thanks.
Here's the deal. Iowa found a way, and I think a part of it is just great individual rebounding. I think Chris and Keegan, they find a way to just go up and get boards at times, and sometimes Iowa does not box out. Am I wrong about that, Gary? Sometimes, or I'm actually going to throw this to JR. They don't always box out.
Early in the year, they really did struggle blocking people out. JR will know. We worked on blocking out all the time. That's the first thing.
You got to.
The body on and go get the ball, it's a fundamental. I'm making fun of JR. One thing I'll say about JR is his tank was empty when the game was over. And that's all you can ask of a player. He took a lot of pride in how he played and how he improved and how hard he played. And that's why he was a joy to coach. So I can rib him a little bit every once in a while, but he was a good dude to go to war with.
What was Jess Settles versus J.R. Koch like in timeout?
Jess was from Iowa, so he was overrated.
Okay, so Jess hosted me on my visit. Well, he sort of hosted me because Jess does everything kind of sort of. So he hosted me, and then Kent took over. But Jess hosted me, and we ended up finishing the same time. So
that's right. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So, but
I think Roy Marble hosted Jordan Bohannon.
Yeah. I would kind of talk about Jess. He would in TD's system, the starters would always make, kind of decide your minutes, when you went in, when you went out. And so I was backing up Jess my freshman year, and he'd come to the bench and, he's got this, he's in war, he's going at it. And he'd give you these crazy eyes, and I'm ready. I'm like, can I go in? Am I ready? Can I go in now? And you could never get a read from this guy. He's all over the place. Old Moosey.
That's great. Let's take our next call here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Yo, can we just admit that this is great? I mean, come on. Did anybody expect this from the Hawkeyes this year? Ever? Come on. Just admit it. Let's just admit it.
Hey, Gary.
This is great.
This
is great.
Gary, you predicted it all along, right? I'm the only one who has had bad thoughts.
We had a hard time bringing you along, Corey. You were tough. I'm glad we finally got you. I did, I liked this team very early on. There's just something about them that I liked, especially when they got beat. They took care of business. They came back and improved, and I like the chemistry. And my son helps out with the program, and he says the guys are terrific. I mean, they're fun to be around. They love to practice. They love being around each other. That's important because you're with those guys. Jerry, I'll tell you, you're with those guys during the season all the time. And if you're with a bunch of bozos, it's not fun. And I think the coaches have done a phenomenal job of getting guys to improve, understanding their role. They've been very unselfish. Joe T loses his job and doesn't bat an eye. He's ready when he's ready.
I think that's a great point. Tonight they showed him on the bench, and he was just loving it, cheering the other guys on.
Yeah,
that is so important.
Yeah,
that is so.
I totally agree. I mean, the bench, the second team, they they give us so much energy. It's crazy. I mean, it's a shot in the arm. I love it.
For sure.
Yep, no doubt.
And Joe T, let me just say something about Joe T. He's turned into maybe my favorite player on this team because, yeah, you're right, JR. He's done that every game. And tonight was a game. I don't know that I have his final. So he ended up totaling 8 minutes. And there are going to be games where he logs 25 to 30. I have no doubt about it because they're just games where he is on and maybe Tony or Aaron are not playing as well. And he is the most selfless guy on this team. And I mean, there were rumors 2 years ago when he wasn't playing that perhaps he would leave. And you've never heard that from anybody within the program. You've certainly never heard that from Joe and been given no inclination that he's even been thinking about that. And he's just been tremendous playing behind a guy who is kind of perceived as the old man in Jordan Bohannon. So I agree with you, caller. Joe T and this entire team has they've exceeded expectations in a huge way.
Beat down.
There's nobody that enjoys Tony Perkins playing better than Joe. You can just tell that, and so that person's going to play better when they got their guys behind, especially the guy that they replaced is pulling for you. That's contagious, and
sure.
He deserves a lot of credit for that, as do the rest of the guys. And as we talked about, Laura, I think Fran has really done a great job of in-game going with the guys that are hot. And you got to do that. Sometimes you just got to coach with your gut. And he has really been uncanny in terms of like tonight, sticking with Joe. Joe got some big minutes because Tony got some big minutes because he was off to a terrific start, and J-Bo same way. And
yep.
Chris is there at the end because he's playing. He's playing terrific. So it's a team thing.
And Gary, Brad asks, is PMAC hurt again? He had 18 minutes in the game. I guess I don't remember. Did he play in the second half? Is that what Brad's referring to here?
That's a good question. Well, he must have. He couldn't have played 18 minutes in the first half.
Yeah, I think he played. I think Chris was just kind of going in the first half, and then they brought him back, and he started. Yeah. He started going.
Yeah,
he was really productive out there.
If Patrick was at all unsure about playing in this game, and if Chris is playing well, why not leave him in there?
Well, and he didn't play the last game. So he's a little banged up, probably.
Right. Comment here from Greg. Patrick with the hip pointer looked a bit slow against these Michigan athletes. Hope he's a full go. So yeah, the hip. How does an injury like that affect you, Gary? I don't know how many players you've dealt with that have had hip injuries. Is it more a defensive thing? Is it a shooting thing? How does that affect Patrick if for some reason that does linger?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it depends upon how serious it is, but the problem is that you're using your hips all the time to hold people off, to guard, and so if it's sore and you're constantly getting it hit, then it has a hard time to improve. And he's not a real big physical body anyway, so that probably compounds it. But he made some good plays tonight. He had a couple of nice drives that he finished, and so it was good to see him back in there. Hopefully he got through the game, and I'm sure they try to want to limit his minutes because there are bigger fishes to fry here coming down the road.
He's great at finishing off of 1 foot.
Mm-hmm.
That would not fly with Dr. Tom. But
no.
He is great that he's kind of his slashing and just kind of finishing. He's crafty that way, and he's so long. He's really a tough match.
Yeah.
He's a tough matchup.
Let's get to our next call. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lemansky, Corey.
Lemansky, how are you, sir?
Good. I just like to point out to your program that when the Hawks went to the Final Four under Lute Olson, Kenny Arnold was a sophomore. There was another sophomore, which would have been Kevin Boyle. And then you had Bobby Hansen off the bench that was a freshman. But then you had some senior leadership, and they were without Ronnie Lester for most of that season. I think if people step back and just look at what makes a great basketball team, and I think what's so impressive to me, and Fran talks about it, is that senior leadership that maybe doesn't score all the points, but puts people in the right position. I think when you know all the roles and you've got senior leadership, and then your younger players come along, it's kind of magical. I don't really concerned how far the Hawks go, but the health of the program and development where they're at, I think, is just awesome.
I think that's a great point. I mean,
Very good.
Connor he's kind of, once he's been a little bit healthier here these last couple of games, you see him just playing free. And he's always going to be a fantastic passer with his bounce passes. He finds guys. Even when it's on the perimeter, when he kind of gets a outlet pass, he's looking, he knows, oh, J-Bo just got a three. I'm going to find, he's got a good knack. He understands the game at a high level. He's
Coach on the floor, there's no doubt. Yeah, and he's got toughness to him. He just he sticks his nose in there, and guys like that.
He's a winner. I love Connor.
Anything else, Lemansky?
I guess I'll just close with this and hang up. I think and JR and Gary can really comment on this. I think part of it is when you've got a style that you really like. The styles are different in the Big Ten, but I think when players love the style of what your coaches like to run, I just go back to Tom Davis. Like, that team just looked like they're having fun going up and down the court and pressing. And I think this team loves the style of the coaching staff. And I think once you start having fun and loving the game, isn't that what it's all about? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Lemansky.
Yeah, he had some real good comments there. I don't think there's any doubt that, we had talked about it earlier, that the freedom that Fran gives his players, not only the freedom, but then the ability to, if you make a mistake, it's not going to be the end of the world. And that builds confidence. You're not looking over your shoulder, waiting to come out if you miss a shot or throw the ball away. And then what happens is if you play like that, then you are going to throw the ball away probably more or miss more shots. So, it's a real good knack, because that's, a lot of times coaches overcoach. That's kind of the natural reaction, is to be constantly coaching and to be able to have enough confidence to let your guys go. And obviously Fran's been around. That's really, it'd be a fun way to play. I don't think there's any doubt.
Yep, I'd agree.
We got let's go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you, Jerry.
No. I agree 100%. Just coaching my boys, you always want to, and sometimes they'll come up to me and go, I got it.
Yeah, right.
We got it, Dad. Okay.
Sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
We got 161 people on here, and I'm going to take a break from the calls because we are coming up on our hour. And JR, you and I can probably stay up all night talking about this win, but Gary, he's retired. He's in South Carolina, so it's like past midnight out there.
Yeah.
He's got to hit the links.
For the Hawks, you know what I mean?
He's got to hit the links at like 6 a.m. Work on that.
I'm going to go for it. I'm going for it later tea time tomorrow.
He needs his beauty sleep. No way. Don't let him.
You are golfing tomorrow, correct, Gary?
I am. You better believe it.
Boy. There you go. Okay. I got a couple questions in the chat I want to get to. So Chase, first of all, says JR and Gary just watched the Iowa at Kansas game in 98. I think Kansas had a 61-game home win streak. What a classic. You guys had 30 turnovers and still came back in the second half. Is that true? 30 turnovers, JR?
Yeah.
It was close.
Yeah.
My goodness.
It was ridiculous. I don't even know how we were in the game, but our defense, we turned them over enough. They turned it over quite a bit. We had some timely shots. Just kind of stuck around close enough. And then Kenny Mack just said, get on, boys, get on my shoulders. I'm going to start knocking some shots down.
Oh, boy. Yes, he did. That was one of the great wins of that season. That was, nobody wins in there very often. And I think we were down well into the double digits.
Yeah,
it didn't look very good. That's the beauty of pressure defense. It may not be working, then all of a sudden you get a flurry and you get an 8-0 run in a minute and you're back in the game, and now you got your confidence. Now they're looking over their shoulder now, and that's exactly what happened. And it was a beautiful one.
That was crazy.
Charles says, question for Coach Close and JR. Can you maybe give us viewers your experiences as well as the difference in atmosphere from the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament?
It's a good question.
Great question.
I think one of the interesting things about the Big Ten tournament, and one of the reasons they put it in when, 25 years ago, whenever they did it, is that it does give you a taste of what the NCAA tournament's like, the one and done. It's different. I mean, it's really different. Then what I have found in the NCAA is, JR probably can comment on this, is every round you advance, it gets another notch higher. You get to the Sweet 16, it is a different deal. And then obviously you get to the Final Four, it's like nothing you ever even imagined. I mean, it's just it is so cool to be a part of that. So it may be the greatest sports thing out there. I mean, it's well watched, and there's nothing like March Madness. So the longer you can stay alive, it just gets more and more fun.
Yep, without a doubt, it is the best sporting event. It is the best. I only played in 2 Big Ten. They started my junior year, so and unfortunately, we didn't do the best our first couple of years in it. So, but it gave us a knack of, hey, it's a one and done. But yeah, it's you just got to be playing as hard and as well as you can towards the end of the year. These Hawks are. I'm excited to see where they can go.
Yeah.
Matt makes a good point. Says JR was ahead of his time. Stretch 5 that could shoot threes. He'd be making some serious money in the NBA if he was playing. Now, where'd you learn to shoot, JR? Because that wasn't a big man's shtick back in the 90s.
I had a good coach who let me shoot.
He could always shoot. He was a shooter right from first day I saw him.
It was just something I always worked on. I didn't have the big build, I had more speed and kind of, and I could shoot the ball. So it was just kind of how I operated. And so I worked on that.
But you kept adding things to your game. By the time you got to be a junior, senior, you were pretty effective down low with the jump hooks and the up and unders and stuff like that.
I had little spins that it was to try to utilize my quickness. The back to the basket kind of bump and bump. That wasn't in the Big Ten. I would get bumped off enough that it would affect my shot. I had to use quicks and speed and kind of turn and face and quick moves to kind of get guys off.
Yeah.
That's how when I played overseas, that's what I had to do.
When you were a young player, when did you realize that you could, play at a level like Iowa? During your high school career, when did you say, you know what, I think I got a chance. I might be able to pull this off?
Well, I was very fortunate when I was a freshman. There was 3 other division guys, actually 4 other division basketball players. A couple of them mid guys and one mid-major guy. So we had, and the Peoria area was loaded with talent at that time when I was in high school. So college coaches would come and they'd go to one high school, then the next high school, then the next high school. So it wasn't out of the ordinary to have 5 or 6, 7, sometimes 10 college coaches at our practices at my sophomore year, just scrimmages, little open gyms. So they saw this skinny, I don't know, 6'8", whatever, 6'9" kid running up and down and kind of fighting some of these big seniors and juniors. And they said, oh, this guy may have a chance. So I think that's kind of where it started. And I just kind of kept on working at it.
When did you feel, though, from your own perspective?
Playing against those guys.
Yeah.
I kind of had some moments against them and I was like, all right, he's going to go play Division I. He's going to go play at Wisconsin Missouri. One of my guys played at Missouri.
Oh, yeah, right. The grim kid. Yeah.
Yep, Derek. So, and we'd play one-on-one after practice all the time and I'd hold my own. And so it just kind of became a thing. You build some confidence and all right, I can do this.
I want to say appreciate this from the Johnny O Show. He says, keep up the good work in the super chat. And not sure if he's talking to me, if he's talking to two of you, if he's talking to the Hawkeyes, whatever. That's a positive statement. So appreciate that super chat.
Ratings have shot through the roof tonight, JR. It's all because of you.
I don't know why. They're waiting for something else.
Is Coop coming on? Where's Coop? Is he back there? Come on, Coop.
He's doing his homework. He's not like me in that regard either.
Hey, I have a question for you, JR. Who would you say, is there a former Hawkeye that there are fans or listening can attest to or can relate to, I guess, that Cooper sort of would remind them of? Either this generation or I don't want to say you're a part of a different generation, but you are. I mean, maybe from the 90s.
You know what? I'd say, this is kind of Kent and I have kind of talked about it a little bit, but he's got a knack he's got great hands. And one of my teammates, Ryan Bowen, always could get weird steals and just, Coop's not one of these guys that's going to jump and get all kinds of blocks, but he's got a knack for getting this ball before it goes up, whether that's good or bad sometimes, but he does that. So that's kind of a Ryan Bowen kind of thing. Gosh, I don't know. It's kind of hard. I've tried to think of this. He's similar to me in a lot of regards, just the way he plays, the ability to shoot outside and do some things like that. I think he's at this age, he's a much better shooter than I am, or I was. I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he 6'8"?
He's 6'8". He's a full 6'8", maybe 6'8.5". We measured, I don't know when it was, but yeah, he's 6'8". I think he's got another inch. That'd be my guess. He's a sophomore. So
he's gonna look good in the black and gold, JR. I'll tell you, 6'9", 6'10", boy, with handles. I love it. The Real Hayden says, Coach Close, have you met Jack Devlin? He says, I was almost in tears at the game on Monday when he hit the half-court shot. Love the character of this team.
That might have been one of the best senior nights I've ever seen, between Jack hitting that half-court shot, the Ash kid bombing his first one in from Coralville. The fans were great. They played well. Jay Bo, the way he finished up, and you could just tell how much his experience meant to him at that place. It was a wonderful night. I have met Jack a couple times. My son is also on the manager crew, and I was telling JR they really worked with Jack a long time to get him ready for that half court shot, and he wasn't looking very good. He was struggling, but he rose to the occasion. And then I think the neat thing, I've seen pictures, I've seen film. The reaction of the team,
yes,
to his making that basket. Literally, there was one wide angle picture of the team, and literally every one of them, you look at it, they're just going nuts, from the managers to the players to the coaches. All the coaches are going crazy.
They were in a timeout.
It just tells you something. That's not fake.
Yeah,
and that's why they're winning the kind of games they're winning. They're just a tight group, and it was a thrill for all of them to see that kid make that shot. I mean, he will remember that the rest of his life. And how cool is that? I mean, it doesn't get any better.
It's all through it's not a player, you're excited for it's down to the manager, it's when he does, that's a good chemistry thing going on there.
And I just from someone who doesn't have any inside connections like you do with your son being a manager, Gary, you certainly have a connection there, but just to see Fran McCaffery react the way he did, a special moment, because I've said it long. I've said it for years. Fran McCaffery, for the most part, stays even keeled no matter. I know he gets upset at the officials or his players, but I'm talking when good things happen, he typically, big threes at big times. If you look up at Fran McCaffery, he's got his arms crossed, no reaction, and to see him go chest bump Jack Devlin, that just shows you. I mean, he's obviously, I think we all know his players love him, and that's just good to see from a fan's perspective as well.
No doubt, no doubt, and it's why they're playing like they're playing. And I don't think there's you can't fake that kind of stuff. The people, coaches try to fake that kind of stuff. Players will read that so quick, and he'll lose the whole group. I mean, you got to be genuine. And even if you're getting on people, it's got to be honest. It's got to be genuine. And I'm sure he gets on a lot of people, but they know that when they're getting on them, that it's for their own good and it's honest. It's not BS. He's not making things up. It's not personal. And so that's how he reacts to a kid that's in his program that's a manager. And it was like somebody hit a game-winning shot fact, he probably has never done that even with a game-winning shot. It was so cool. I just every time I see that clip, I just puts a smile on my face.
Yeah.
TB Lightning Bolt says the show is amazing. Appreciate that, Lightning Bolt, whatever your first name is. Hawkeye basketball means the world to me. My dad loved hoops until he died. Appreciate you being here and supporting the show. We do have a caller on the line. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Pat. How you
Hey,
guys
Pat.
doing?
We're doing wonderful.
I just have a couple of comments and a question for JR. First of all, I think when the Hawks win, Gary should turn those birds back on again.
JR didn't know about the birds.
He doesn't know about the birds.
Tell him about
But,
the birds, Gary. Tell JR about the
Do we have
birds.
enough time to do that?
Oh, hey, you're the guy. It's like midnight out. It's like 12:20 out in South Carolina right now.
Well, as you know, you got your computer here, JR, and my computer, I've got a golf simulator down in my basement.
Well, I've heard about it from Moosey.
Yeah, and it's primarily for my daughter, but I do hit a few on it myself. And when you turn it on, you can go play different courses or you can play the practice range. But it's a nice sunny day and the birds are chirping.
Yeah.
And somehow my daughter was down there hitting. She turned it off a different way. I'm not a computer guy. But anyway, I could not get that program off my computer. And so we're doing the show and these birds are chirping on the whole show. I just say we're up from the Hawks nest. Come on, people. Let's go.
And what's funny is Gary didn't address it. So, like, we're 25 minutes into the show, JR, and I'm like, do I hear birds, Gary? Like,
I wanted to see how long it was going to take you to comment on it.
I'm like,
turned it up a couple times just to see if you would say something.
there's more than a few things
Do I
that I try
intimidate
to.
you so much that you weren't going to ask me about my birds?
Well, I kept thinking maybe it's just like a glitch in the system. There's things going on behind the scenes, but they literally sounded like birds. And once we realized they were birds, JR, they were almost kind of peaceful. Felt like we were out in a big.
Out in the open.
We took our show to the outdoors, to the Hawks
Yeah.
nest. It was
Impressive.
we got to, we had to improve the ratings, and I think the ratings have kind of gone up since then. If I'm not
Ever
mistaken.
since the birds, man. I think I was playing better since the birds. Maybe.
That might have
That's
something.
probably
to do
it. That's probably more to do with it.
All right, Pat. What you got for us, Pat?
Well, I just wanted to say, Rabracha, he struggled a little bit tonight, around the rim. So I mean, as far as the players go, he might have been the one guy that struggled. But he fights like a dog down there, and within the chemistry of the team, I mean, he fits right in because he gives them so much fight down there on the offensive glass, and then the last thing I wanted to ask of JR is, and then I'll hang up. If he could just maybe give us like a 30-second bio of what he's been up to the last couple decades.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And just because I don't think that was covered earlier. So,
Sure.
just, what have you been up to, JR, the last couple decades? And going back in time, I really enjoyed watching you play. So, go Hawks. Let's get another win on Sunday at Illinois and take it from there.
Thanks,
guys.
Pat. Appreciate the call.
Well, wow. So after Iowa, I was drafted by the New York Knicks, and then kind of didn't really quite make it. There was some reasons. I actually got my rights traded to the New Jersey Nets, and do you remember old Michael Cage?
Oh, yeah.
Rebounding force. So my agent kind of sent me to New Jersey to be the poor man's Keith Van Horn, is kind of how I put it. He was one of the studs there at the time, and basically guard him in practice every day. So Michael Cage was going to retire, but he had a contract, but he didn't show up to vet camp or anything. And then about, 2 weeks into the season, he started showing up a lot. And that was my door. So I took off. I went overseas, played 7 years over in Europe, Belgium, a couple in France, a couple in Turkey. And then I blew out my knee in Turkey my second year, came back, did the whole rehab thing, and then went over to Italy, kind of the Florence area, played over there. then we were expecting Coop. And between my knee not being quite, I was having to get my knee drained every week, sometimes twice a week. And the body was just telling me it's not happening anymore. So I had that kind of heart to heart with myself and said, it's time. And so we went back and we had a place in Peoria kind of for the off season, and came back, kind of got settled here. And then I got into real estate. I got my real estate license and was just kind of doing that to kind of get into some investment type stuff. And next thing you know, I'm doing real estate still 16 years later, and I love it. It gives me some freedom. I got a good little team, and we just kind of sell homes.
Nice.
That's awesome. And
he
you got
outkicked his coverage big time with his wife. Whoa.
You're not one to talk, my friend.
No. Well, no doubt. I'm a great recruiter. For sure.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I just want to finish the show because I know we're like I said, we're at an hour now. That's been a pleasure to be able to catch up with you, Jeremy. I mean, I have never met you before this show, and it's been a pleasure to be able to get to know you. And certainly, I hope Cooper ends up in the black and gold wherever he does end up. I know he's gotten a real solid start, real well-grounded start to life because of you, it sounds like. And so congratulations to you and his success. But just a couple quick-fire questions because I don't want to leave these last few questions hanging. So Dan talks about switching screens in the second half off Dickinson. Should we use DROP? What is DROP? Coverage on high screens. So
not hedge them, not do stuff is out there. Bigs like that, you got to, kind of drop, but it depends on your ball handler as well. If
Wisconsin
that ball handler
did it to Jaden Ivey in that game, and that really bothered him. He could not decide whether to shoot a pull-up, whether to shoot a floater, whether to pass it. And he got a little better as it went on, but that was really hard to cover. It looks like an easy play. It's not an easy play. Especially it gets easier as you get more experience, but I thought defensively they were good tonight for the most part. Dickinson's a handful. I mean, he's a tough guard.
And in defensive,
I didn't feel like they put Dickinson in a lot of pick and roll action tonight. I think I just didn't feel like he was in a lot of those.
That's probably a good point. Yeah.
As much as I have seen him before, sometimes he's really been up top and they've done the pick and pop type thing. When guys have done the drop coverage. Jones is good at getting in there and kind of drawing both and then hitting back. But, I don't know if it's something about the way we were, maybe our personnel, we weren't guarding that the way where he got that stuff. And I just don't think they put him in that action as much.
Yeah, I agree.
Question from Eric here. Who are your final 4 picks, Gary and JR? Your 4 best teams, maybe, at this point.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a tough one.
That is really tough.
I think I gotta go. For me, I'll just go first. Give you guys a second. I'd go Gonzaga. I still think Baylor's going to be there. And I think Kansas and Kentucky both have a shot. Kentucky does not have the resume that maybe the outside world believes they do if you look back at their resume. But I still think the talent on that team is going to be really tough to beat in the tournament. You guys agree with any of those picks? Or it's
I like Arizona. What I've seen of Arizona, I've liked. They're pretty young, so you get in the NCAA can get a little shaky. And I like Purdue. I think there are a number of teams in the Big Ten that could go, and Iowa's one of them. But if Purdue can get some stops, I think that's where I worry about them. If they can get some consistent stops, and I thought they played Wisconsin pretty good defensively. Purdue was like 10 of 21 from the free throw line, and they missed about 10 layups.
Yeah,
and they gave up 2 bank shots and lose by 3 on the road. So that's their potential. And Ivy is both those guys got a chance to take over games and win. So I think Purdue's got a shot. But it's going to be a great NCAA tournament because there's really no team out there goes, oh man, there's nobody that can hang with them. I think there's probably 8, 10, 12 teams that could could cut down the nets. So it's going to be fun.
JR, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I had Arizona just because I know they're up there, but I've watched them a couple of times, and they're a handful of really, really good athletes, and they can defend. I got Gonzaga. They're so deep. They got really good guards. They got good bigs.
Yeah.
And I put Purdue in mine, just short list. One of the reasons why is I think the Big Ten officials get they don't know what to do with Edey. And I think, as you kind of alluded to earlier, the officiating and the tournament, and I know that
he gets screwed. That kid gets screwed.
Totally gets screwed.
He gets screwed.
Totally gets screwed. And I think they'll call things a little tighter. And I think they run really good actions, and I think they'll get, if they don't get there, they're going to get really close. They have just kind of a breakdown once in a while where they lose track, and if they can kind of lock in and avoid that, they're going to be tough.
I tell you, who kills them defensively is Ivy. You watch him off the ball; he's horrible.
He just falls asleep.
No excuse because he's an athletic freak, Gary.
They don't put him on Davis because Davis had 37 against them the first time they played. So then they put him on Hepburn. And then Hepburn goes off, and there were a couple times where he's just sitting there watching the ball, and Hepburn is wide open. If they could get him straightened out defensively, I think he's really the weak link defensively, and he's so good offensively, and he's a big time player.
He is
defensively. He's not great.
He is so fast. From one point, like free throw line, to the next free throw line,
he can go.
It is unbelievable.
And I'll tell you, Matt offensively is as good as it gets. I mean, they run some terrific stuff. They get a lot of good shots. I think Edey got fouled 10 times in that game, and they called about 4 of them. I mean, he just got pounded. There were a couple possessions he got fouled twice, and they didn't call. And it was just he's so big, and when he turns, his elbow is in somebody's face because he's 7'12", whatever I think he is. It's hard. The refs just have a hard time refereeing against him.
So do you think
that could open him up in the tournament?
Do you think in the tournament it'll be a little bit tighter, a little bit more whistle? And
I think I think they just figure he's so big that they call every other one. They don't call every one. They don't want the kid going to the line 20 times.
Yep.
Which reminds me of a great story about Duke. We played Duke in the NCAA championship game in 2015. We led the nation in least fouls given up in a game. We averaged 8 fouls per game. That's what we averaged per game, 8 total. In the first half, we had 2. And looking back on them, I didn't think either one of them were very good calls, but you're going to have some bad calls. We had 2 fouls in the first half, and we led by 5 or 6 at halftime. In the second half, we were called for 14. We went from 2 to 14 in one half and lose by 5.
It's the Coach K effect. It's the Coach K effect.
Coach K factor. There's no doubt about it. No doubt.
Don't be surprised to see Coach K and Duke in the Final Four this year. I'm not saying because of the officials, but it's his last ride. It's another team that I would not be shocked to see them make a run, Gary.
No, not at all. Not at all. Although I think the ACC is a little down. I don't think they're quite the level that the Big Ten is. Or UCLA is a good team. You don't hear about those teams because they're playing at 11 o'clock at night. But they got a lot of guys back from last year's team that went to the Final Four. So it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be 3 weeks of. JR's got that real estate. He doesn't even have to go. He can just sit by and watch those games all day long, don't you? That's what you're gonna do, aren't you?
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
As much as possible.
I'm retired, so I'll have all my TV set up. It's gonna be fun.
I say you're out on a beach hitting golf balls into the ocean, Gary. What are you talking about?
Well, no, I did that now so I can be back in time for the tournament.
That makes sense.
Scheduling's everything.
Are you going to Milwaukee for the first round?
If Iowa was there, I would go. Yeah, that'd probably be the only.
Let me give you one more dark horse in answer to the question that we had. Arkansas coming on at the right time. I think it's a dangerous team, but let's be honest, trying to predict this is just, I mean, it's like throwing trying to get a needle from a haystack because it's just so many good teams. And then, of course, there's going to be upsets. And I think we can all agree, you guys would probably attest to this. You've been there, done that. Matchups are a huge part of it, right? Draw is a major factor once you get to tournament play.
No doubt.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure.
And Charles says, JR, can you tell us what it was like playing with Ricky Davis?
Rick was he was unbelievably talented. He was one of those guys that didn't know how good he is and how good he could be. Rick, it was a tough year for a lot of guys, but Rick was he was a player. He was a player.
And Doug says, does JR feel that Andre Woolridge was the best player he played with at Iowa? If not, how did he not play in the NBA?
So just recently, last week, Kent, myself, Jess, Bowen, oh gosh, I don't even know who else. We probably had 7 or 8 guys. We're texting about all kinds of stuff. And I don't know. And Andre was one of the guys on there. And I have no idea how he didn't get drafted. I don't know how he didn't play in the league. I don't get it. I know he made a lot of money playing in Europe, but he was my most talented, gifted athlete. He could do whatever he wanted.
I'll tell you a story about Andre Woolridge. First off, Andre led the Big Ten in scoring and assists.
First person since.
And did not win Player of the Year.
First person since Magic to do that, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We played who did we play? We played out in Salt Lake City. Did we play
the first round?
No, we won. The second, we played Pitino, didn't we?
Pitino, Kentucky.
Yeah. And he pressed, he's a full court press guy like Tom. And they tried to press Andre Woolridge. And it was like hot knife through butter. I mean, he just, and I thought after that game that he showed everybody that this guy is one of the top point guards in the country. I mean, they couldn't press him.
Yeah.
And they had a really, really good team. And we dang near beat him. And it was all because of him. He just tore that press up. I think
they won it that year.
They did win it that year. Yeah. And we gave them a battle.
One of their tougher games.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people worried a little bit about his size. And then he was a guy that made shots. He was not a great shooter, pure great shooter. And I think that might have something to do with it. But I to this day, same thing. That guy was tough. He was a winner. He doesn't get nearly enough credit for how good a player he was. He was a big time player. One of the best point guards I was ever been around. I've been around some good ones.
Matt asks, does Iowa have another guard that can hit a jump shot in the tournament? Are you guys at all confident right now? We saw Aaron Eulis airball a 3. Tony, I think, is probably the guy. If you're going to look at someone who you might be comfortable taking shots down the stretch, he's had 2 of 3 games where he shot the ball well.
Yeah, but they might be all right. I mean, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think Tony can be respectable, and Patrick can hit some shots from the outside. Connor has shot the ball well of late. And the Murrays, both of them can shoot from the outside, so they got plenty of outside shooters. That doesn't mean they can't get cold, but I think JR's right. I think it's going to be defense and rebounding. I don't think they're going to have a problem. Everybody runs into a bad night's shooting, but they can score. I think if they get knocked out, it's going to be because they can't get enough stops.
When they get stops, they're able to get in transition.
Yep.
And that starts everything for them.
Yep.
That starts to snowball and it starts to go nuts. And once they get that going, they're good stops, buckle down.
Mm-hmm.
They're tough.
Yeah.
Does it matter if Iowa's a 3 or 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament? The answer to that question is yes, based solely on matchups. Gary, you alluded to that earlier. Would you rather be the 3 seed? Because I'd have to imagine the bracket because I don't have it in front of my face right now. But who would they play if they're the 3 seed? I know those aren't set, but who would they likely play? Do you know?
In the first game?
Yeah, I mean, they have a double bye, of course, but who would they be?
Well, the bottom 4 teams play first.
Right.
And so you eliminate 2. And then the next, then the top 4 are still sitting out. So it depends on who they would play. If they're the 3, they would play number 6.
Right.
But it depends on who wins those next games. So you're in there with like Rutgers and Indiana, Michigan State. It could be any of those teams, but they could get beat. I mean, we've seen it before. We'll see some upsets in the Big Ten tournament. I guarantee it. We'll see some.
Gary's going to call me Mr. Negative, but Fran has never won more than one game in a Big Ten tournament. That's a fact. So that.
Oh, Corey, come on! We've had a nice show tonight.
JR.
You got to throw water on the fire all the time.
No, he's never won more than one game in the Big Ten tournament. That's a fact, and that's got to change.
Easy to win that tournament. It's not easy to win that tournament.
Well, but I know I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying doesn't he? We're in year 13 or 12. At some point, don't you got to win more than one game in the Big Ten tournament?
Well, yeah, maybe this is going to be the year.
Maybe this is going to be the year. Ryan says, is Gary pulling for Iowa or Wisconsin if we face off? I know the answer to that question, but go ahead, Gary.
Why is he putting me on a spot like that?
We all know the answer.
Oh, Ryan. Let's make sure we keep track of that guy's name. He doesn't get on this show anymore. I'm rooting for Iowa. My son plays for Iowa now, so I got to root for the Hawks.
And I think this is the final question. So I thank you guys for sticking around an extra couple minutes. But hyper-local, JR, who you got for Player of the Year? I guess take Big Ten and National Player of the Year. Who you got?
Big Ten, Keegan Murray. He's so stinking smooth, man. It's he's a joy to watch.
He really is.
Just he does everything. He plays hard. He doesn't say boo.
How about this one? How about Keegan Murray might be the National Player of the Year and not the Big Ten Player of the Year? That could happen.
That's possible. They may do the Johnny Davis.
Yeah, because they won the league. I mean, it's going to be between the two of them. I think it's going to.
Yeah,
I think it's going to come down to that, and they usually lean towards the team that wins.
I think
I'll tell you what, Keegan Murray has had a year that I hope Hawk fans have enjoyed it because next time they watch him play after he's done, going to be in the NBA.
He is so smooth.
Mm-hmm. Kind
of
reminds me of you a little bit in your day.
Huh?
Kind of reminds me a little bit of you in your day.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a compliment, JR. Don't be.
I know him too well. I know he's joking.
Maybe it's not a compliment. Well, that's a low blow, almost an hour and a half in, Gary.
No, that's not a low blow.
You come off.
I speak right from the heart.
You got that late night disease that overtakes the elderly late at night, Gary.
Corey, I didn't say anything about his golf game. I've played
golf games weak
3 times.
If you're a basketball coach, your golf game's not any good unless you're a natural athlete, and I'm not that.
What is your handicap, Gary? Have we talked about that? What's your golf handicap? You swing? Is that what you said?
My swing.
His handicap is his swing. That's the truth.
JR, are you a golfer?
I play.
He plays 4 or 5 times a week.
No,
he's got that real estate. He's got that real estate.
That is
he sells a couple houses in the morning, and then he's out in the afternoon playing.
No,
so JR,
I play a lot.
Do you play
between him and Kent McCausland? They get 150 rounds in a year, easy.
No, that is not true. That is not true. I get like 50 rounds. Sorry, 50 rounds in.
50
rounds. That's a lot of rounds.
That's a lot of rounds. Living in the Midwest and Central Illinois, that's a lot of rounds. I'm proud of that.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish
150. I would. That's not possible. I'm chasing kids all around all summer.
Are you getting out there? Are you getting out there this weekend? Because it's supposed to be like 60 here in the Midwest.
No, I'm going to Purdue, Indiana, and Illinois, Iowa.
How about those for 2 games?
Oh, that's awesome.
Battle of the Indiana and at Purdue, and then Illinois and Illinois and Iowa. They love each other. That'll be fun.
This week we've seen some doozies of games. I mean, the Iowa game was just awesome, and then the Wisconsin game was awesome.
Yeah.
And last night at Indiana, unfortunately, we didn't bring the victory, but we're right there, and that was an awesome.
Who did they play last night?
Rutgers, and lost pretty much. They just didn't make the plays down the stretch. Ron Harper hits.
What's your impression of? I've never met Coach at Indiana.
Woodson?
Yeah.
Woodson?
Good guy.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. Very good guy. He knows his stuff. He's been in the league for 30 years, so there's that transition.
Yeah.
And he's figuring that out, but he's got a great staff. Good group of
Looks
kids.
like the guys like playing for him, that's for sure.
They like playing for him. They like playing for him. He gives them some leverage and some rope to kind of, but they're figuring out how to win. They're kind of maybe a different group. I don't know.
Project,
they didn't shoot the ball real well, and that's kind of been a thing. Tonight we shot the ball. We almost 60%. The Hawks 60% from three. That makes things a lot easier. When you don't shoot the ball well, it makes things tough.
Yeah, they've struggled from the perimeter all year long.
Can I say something about Indiana, Gary?
Yeah.
They find a way to lose
Go
games.
ahead,
They have found a way to lose games this year, have they not?
Yeah.
And it might end up keeping them out of the tournament. I mean, that loss to Rutgers the other night is just.
They have Wisconsin down 22 at Wisconsin.
I think that's the game that Wisconsin really. They say Houston, but they also started to really get them going. All right, we can maybe do this.
Yeah,
this is big. So
no doubt.
Corey, you're right. They're struggling to figure out ways to win games down the stretch. They'll get a stop, but they don't get the bucket to follow it up, and it's just kind of been a tough year. It's a learning year for them, I think.
They just got to get into a tournament. I know it's a new regime with Woodson, but they just got to get into the tournament because it seems like I feel bad for the fan base. And I don't know if Indiana's a blue blood, but it just seemed like under Archie Miller, it was always the same story. You get to February and talk about a fade. Everybody wants to say Fran fade. Man, it seemed like Indiana every year was so close and something would happen and they'd kind of spiral. And hopefully that doesn't happen. I mean, the more Big Ten teams in, the better. I think we can all agree on that.
Sure.
It helps the conference. And
they got work to do.
So to kind of recap everything, folks, Keegan Murray with 23 points, 7 of 9 from the field, a perfect 4 of 4 from 3, 6 rebounds. He just continues to impress night after night. Chris Murray, his brother, 11 points. Is that right? 11 points? He had more than that, didn't he?
Oh, he had 19.
He had 19 points. Where did the 11 points come from? That's not correct, folks.
Who's doing that?
6 rebounds.
Fire that person.
I don't know what's going on.
Ratings.
Yeah, 19 points.
We can't put out that fake news stuff, or that's going to get us in trouble. We got to put out the honest stuff. It's like you're going to be selling mouthwash to get rid of COVID.
I'm going to be canceled here pretty soon if you're not careful, Gary. Jordan Bohannon, 19 points, 5 of 7 from the field. Here's the right number for Chris Murray. I did have it somewhere. 19 points, 9 of 11 from the field. Just a real complete performance from the Hawks, and that's another quad 1 victory. I don't think this quad 1 win. Certainly the net rankings can fluctuate a bit, but the fact that they won, I think Michigan was top 75 on the road is a quad 1 win. And last I checked, I think Michigan's in the 50, maybe even the 40s. They're not slipping out of the top 75 no matter what they do this weekend. So this is a quad 1 win for Iowa. Of course, the game, we talked about it briefly, but to finalize things, Iowa, Illinois, Sunday at 6:30. This brings me back, Gary, and a good friend of mine passed away 2 years ago. Well, actually, about a year and a half ago, but it was we were game watching buddies, and Iowa, Illinois in Champaign, last game of the season before COVID shut things down. That was the last game I got to watch with him. So it's going to bring back a little bit for me. Of course, it was a Sunday. It was on the road. I mean, Iowa lost that game after a frantic comeback. Luka Garza had a shot blocked by Kofi Coburn at the end. It's going to bring back memories for me and kind of be bittersweet, but at the same time, it's going to be almost cerebral and surreal because, again, it was the last thing before COVID shut everything down. And it's kind of come full circle where this is the first time Iowa's been back there with fans since that day. It's going to be a weird game, but it's going to be a big game. What does Iowa need to do to get it done?
It's going to be a terrific game. I think they got to play like they played tonight. Get off to a good start. Obviously, they can't let Kofi go crazy. JR said they're going to have to rebound. That's a tough team to rebound against. But I think in that environment, they've got to get off to a good start at both ends of the court and build on it. So it's a nice way to end the year because that'll be a challenge, and they got a lot to play for. And isn't it great to see all the fans back in the arenas?
Huh.
I mean, it's just we were missing so much. I went to the senior game last year at Iowa because I had a nephew that was a manager. So family were allowed to go to the games. And it was like watching a practice. I mean, it was just so weird I couldn't quite get it.
Yeah.
And now to see all the places packed. I mean, that atmosphere at Wisconsin on Tuesday night and Iowa on Monday night, Illinois had unbelievable crowds. I mean, they've got a great.
It's gonna be pretty heated.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strengths of the Big Ten is, with a couple of exceptions, the fans are unbelievable in the Big Ten. They're just unbelievable. Even Nebraska they win 2 games and they're packed, and with a couple of exceptions, the places are packed, they're loud, they're knowledgeable. It's what makes the league great. One of the reasons.
And how does Iowa stop Kofi Coburn? We saw, in defense of Philip Rebrach, because Pat brought up Philip Rebrach on a call earlier, he had to go up against one of the best big men in the country tonight in Hunter Dickinson, and he's going to have his hands full again. Remember, this was a long time ago when Iowa played Illinois the first time around. In fact, wasn't it the first Big Ten game of the year? I'd have to look back at the schedule. I think it was. So, and they played Kofi well in the first half. I'd have to look back at that game, Gary. Maybe you remember what they did in the second half that they really got Kofi going. How does Iowa stop Kofi Coburn Sunday?
Well, I think they just got to make him work. It can't be one guy. Where can you dig and help here and there and give him some different looks, and just try not to make it easy. Make him make tough shots. Don't foul him. Make it tough to get in the post.
You bring a double, Closey?
What's that?
You double him?
Yeah, you might see that a little bit. They haven't done it quite as much, but you might. He's not a real good passer.
Right.
He's not Hunter Dickinson.
No. And then I'd make him work defensively. I'd make him get up and down the court, see if he can wear him out, see if he can get him in foul trouble, get him off the court. He's been in foul trouble at times. In fact, he was in foul trouble the other day when they got beat. So I think Iowa gets him. I think Iowa gets him and goes into the Big Ten on a high note.
What a finish to the season if that happens. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah, that'd be unbelievable.
If we can shoot like we did tonight, they can get him, because that's going to create us getting up and down but it's going to be, we're going to have to really rebound that ball. They're good shooters. If they get going, and they're especially good in the first half, they come out and their guns are blazing. So if we can keep them low that first half, first initial onslaught, they'll be fine.
They dominate.
Here's the other thing that could affect them. If Wisconsin wins in the afternoon and the race is over, and they really don't have anything to play for, that consciously or subconsciously could affect how they play. If Wisconsin gets beat, then you really got Tiger on your hands.
So if you're Iowa, you're rooting for Wisconsin. Is that true? Probably accurate.
Probably.
And let's remember that 2 years ago, that game we keep referring back to, that was a game where they were playing for the double bye. And, of course, it never mattered because we never got to the Big Ten tournament, but Illinois won and would have had the double bye over Iowa. So this has been a meaningful game for years. And this, I think, I would probably proclaim this. If they win Sunday, that's the best win of the season. I know they won at Ohio State, but, Ohio State got that loss at home to Nebraska. This would be the best win of the season, I believe. Am I wrong on that, JR?
No, I'm struggling to think of another one that's as good. And I don't know. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be, if you remember, I think this is 2 years ago. That's the game where Connor and DeMonte went nose to nose. And so there's some bad blood there. It's fun. It's a good game.
And let's not forget about
I think Fran took on one of their assistant coaches, didn't he? Too.
That was at Carver.
That was at Carver. That was Chin.
Yeah, but recently,
Chin Coleman. Yep, him and
so
Chin.
I don't think they're going to have brunch before the game together. It's probably
Chin's at Kentucky now.
He is.
Oh, is that right?
He went on Kentucky Sports Radio and talked about that exchange. If anybody's interested in watching or listening to Chin Coleman talk about that Fran McCaffery exchange, and that was brought up earlier with the Juwan Howard handshake line, and of course that's why the handshake controversy comes up, because we've had incidents like that. All right, and I don't want to pass this over. Tony Perkins with a terrific night, 13 points, 4 boards. Iowa 11 of 19 from 3. Again, Iowa, Illinois, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on FS1. Join us following the game for Iowa postgame. JR, Koch, Coach Gary Close, it's been an absolute pleasure to. I know we kind of went overtime tonight. Hopefully, Gary can recover. I mean, he's
I'll
already
probably
dealing with
be
jet
shot
lag.
for a couple of days now.
Let me know what that golf score is
You don't
tomorrow.
recover so quick when you're getting to be my age.
JR, thanks for hanging out with us for an hour and a half. And
JR, was a blast, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
No problem,
You're a
Closey.
good man.
you
Anytime.
are back.
I'll tell you right now, if Cooper doesn't come down, you'll never be on this show again.
Talk about canceled, JR. All right, folks.
All right, man.
For JR Koch, Coach Gary Close, I'm Corey Brada. Follow From the Hawkeye of the Storm, our podcast. This show will be available on demand from the Hawkeye of the Storm, Spotify, Apple, your favorite podcast platforms. We will talk to you Sunday.